Welcome to Pachehra Talks channel. My name is Arun and I'm solutions architect with Rackspace Technology. And this is my channel and these are my views. And today we are going to talk about data streaming ingestion services. So these two topics we'll try to cover in this video: event streaming and streaming analysis. If you are following this series, we have already covered Azure Streaming Analytics and a couple of other stuff regarding data streaming. And today it's focused towards streaming real-time data and getting insights out of it. So before we go ahead and dig it further from the Azure perspective, we need to understand a few things. Like, what is event, right? Only then we can stream it. We need to understand the event. So event help in capturing the new state of a particular target or resource. And it is different from message that we need to understand, because message are related to business functionality such as sending order details to another system. We already know this is a system where we are sending some information and there is a receiver and it will perform the regular duties what it's supposed to do. So that's the message. It's lightweight and it contains raw data and can be large in size. In comparison, events are different. For instance, if virtual machine is being stopped is an event, right? It is not like somebody is waiting, because in the other example that we gave, where we are sending order details to another system so that they can process it. They're sending the message. But in this system, it just happened, right? Virtual machine being stopped or went on hung status, things like that. This is the event. So events can be stored in a durable storage as historical data, and events can also be used to find patterns that are emerging on an ongoing basis. Events can be thought of as data being streamed constantly, right? And to capture, ingest, and perform analysis on a streaming of data, special infrastructure components that can read a small window of data and provide insights are needed. And that is where the stream analytics services comes into the picture that we have already covered in the previous video. So now I think we have event as a perspective in our mind. We can store it, we can stream it, right? For real time, of course, we need to stream it so that we can perform some analysis and get the actionable insights. That's why event streaming refers to services that can accept data as and when it arises, rather than accepting it periodically. For example, event streams should be capable of accepting temperature information from devices as and when they send it, rather than making the data wait in a queue or staging environment. So before I go ahead, one of the main advantages of event streaming is that it provides real-time insights and information whose usefulness is time dependent. The same information found after a few minutes or hours might not be that useful, like credit card fraud or live dashboards or IoT devices sending vital information and things like that. It also used a lot in the security to find the intrusion, security breaches, failure of components, things like that. So I hope I tried to put this in perspective, like what is event, what is streaming, and how it's analyzed, and some examples. So let's quickly get back to the topic. from Azure perspective. So what are the real-time data ingestion services that Azure offers? Well, we have Azure Event Hub, IoT Hub, and Kafka on Azure HD Insight. Event Hub is a big data streaming platform and event ingestion service. It can receive and process millions of events per second. IoT Hub is a managed service that enables reliable and secure bidirectional communication between IoT devices and a cloud-based backend. And Kafka on HD Insight provides Kafka, which is like open source, as a managed, highly scalable, and highly available service in Azure. And we can use all these services for ingestion as per the requirement. But the hero of this video, the main guy for this video is Azure Event Hub. So let's try to understand Event Hub in detail, because we cannot cover all of these in a single video. But our main mission is completing the pipeline. So the first piece of the pipeline is data ingestion. The second piece is analysis. And the third piece is actionable insights. We have covered this in the previous video. So the first piece we are discussing ingestion, and we are choosing Azure Event Hub for this video. So let's try to understand what is Azure Event Hub. So in order to understand it, we need to cover some features of Event Hub. So these are some features that I have populated. Let's go one by one. It's a fully managed service, a PaaS service, which means we can focus on our business solution rather managing, configuring, and run our clusters. It can support both scenarios like real-time and batch processing. Real-time streaming and batch processing is we are storing it somewhere and then putting analysis that on in batches. We can capture data in real time in Azure Blob Storage or Data Lake for long-term retention or micro batch processing. The main point is we can achieve this behavior on the same stream that we use for delivering real-time analytics. It's highly available, scalable. We can start with data streams in megabytes and grow to gigabytes or terabytes. It supports industry standard protocols like AMQP, HTTPS, also supports Apache Kafka, also various languages like .NET, Java, Python, along with seamless integration with Azure services like Stream Analytics or Azure Functions. Okay, well, these are some features, and let's see the pricing model. Well, it comes with the two pricing models, basic and standard. Basic comes with one consumer group and can retain messages for 1 day. Standard comes with 20 consumer groups and can retain messages up to 7 days, separate storage for 7-day retention. If you're wondering what is consumer group, it will be covered when we'll be talking the architecture of Event Hub. Apart from this, there is something called throughput, TU, throughput units. Throughput is like a bandwidth. Throughput can also be configured at the namespace level. Namespace is a container that we create at the very first and then create the event hub inside the namespaces. And TU, throughput unit, that's how the throughput is calculated in the event hub. And each throughput unit provides up to 1 MB per second ingress for maximum of 1,000 events and 2 MB per second for egress outside, going outbound, and maximum of 4,096 events. So these are some features and some pricing and how it works, throughput units information. Let's check why, when, and where. Why we need Event Hub, when can we think or use Event Hub, and where is more like the use cases where we are already using and things like that. So let's try to understand one by one. This will help us to put this service in the perspective. So Azure Event Hub allows us to raise a data pipeline capable of processing a huge number of events per second with low latency, not intensity, my bad, it's low latency. It can process data from parallel sources and connect them to different infrastructure and services. We have seen that in its features as well. It supports repeated replay of stored data. It's not like the message came and went and you cannot replay it. It can. So these are some things. If this is the requirement, we can think of Azure Event Hub. Now, when we can use? Well, to validate many publishers and to save the events in blob storage or data lake. We could think for Event Hub. When we want to get timely insights on the business application, Event Hub can stream data for you. To obtain reliable messaging or flexibility for big data application, Event Hub is the answer. For seamless integration with data and analytics services to create big data pipeline, Event Hub can help you. Now, let's see a couple of use cases or where it has already been using or where people are actually using it. Well, anomaly detection to identify potential transaction fraud or credit card frauds, for example, that we covered at the very beginning as well. That is one of the use case. Making product recommendation to online customers in real time, monitoring pipelines and distribution systems by companies like oil or nuclear power plants, generating predictive maintenance schedules for industrial manufacturing equipment. Even Microsoft uses the same thing to change its equipment in the data center. Sentiment analysis of social media posts, analyze real-time telemetry streams from IoT devices or applications and perform actionable insights. We covered this in the previous video. Or trigger specific actions when certain thresholds are identified, like security and intrusions and breaches, those things. All right, so now we know what is Event Hub, what are event, why we do streaming and analysis, why we use Event Hub, where we can use Event Hub, and when we can think of Event Hub. Now it's time to understand the base architecture of Event Hub. Well, Event Hub represents the front door for an event pipeline. Well, this is the base architecture of Event Hub. And when I say event pipeline, it also has a couple of other stuff that you can see in the next slide. But here we can understand Event Hub as an event ingester in solution architectures. An event ingester is a component or service that sits between event producer and event consumer, which means multiple events per second would be produced by event producers and sent to Event Hub, which will ingest the streaming data to the consumers. Event Hub cannot be created without an Event Hub's namespaces. Event Hub namespace acts as a container and can host multiple Event Hubs. Each Event Hub namespace provides a unique REST-based endpoint that is consumed by the client to send data to the Event Hub. And here it also have the authentication with the help of SaaS and keys like that. Now, let's try to jump into the detailed architecture. So if you see, here are the producer, here's the Event Hub, and here are the consumers. Now, Event Hub. So this thing is under the namespace. You can have multiple Event Hub inside the namespace. So Event Hub supports the concept of partitioning. As you can see, there are a couple of partitions. Now, partition is like partitioning the data into multiple smaller data stores, which are uniquely identified with the partition key. Same concept that we have seen in other videos like Cosmos. There is a partition key with the help of which you can uh, uh, separate the big data into chunks, into separate small data, and with the help of partitioning, you can identify what is residing where. So partitions also help in bringing parallelism. You can see all the data is going in parallel, and concurrency for applications which are reading the events. For example, if there are 10 partitions, 10 parallel readers can read the events without any degradation in performance. Now, data has reached into the partition, as you can see in the detailed architecture. And now this data needs to be consumed by the consumer. These are the consumers. But consumer cannot directly get the events or read the events from the partition. Consumer has to get the info from the consumer group. Okay. The consumer groups are created for consumers to connect to in order to read the events. There can be multiple consumer groups for Event Hub, and each consumer group has access to all the partitions within the Event Hub. Each consumer group forms a query on the events in the Event Hub. So this is about the detailed architecture of Event Hub. And let's quickly check the entire pipeline, which will help us to put everything at its place and understand the entire architecture. This is the same architecture that you have seen in the previous video. Now, if you see, there are like three pieces: ingest, analyze, and deliver. Ingest is the piece where Event Hub plays the role, and Stream Analytics will analyze the streaming data coming from the Event Hub and deliver the data to these output or these particular output or destination. It could be data warehouse, dynamic dashboarding, alerts, or storage. So there are multiple source or event producers which are sending data to the Event Hub, and Stream Analytics runs the job, and the job construct is very simple and help us to comprehend. It is like input data, then there would be a query, then there is output data. The input data is coming from Event Hub. Along with that input, you can also input the reference data for the lookups and function for the existing data that you have. You can also run the ML services for scoring. And the query is SQL query that you could utilize along with the UDF, user-defined functions, with Java and C#. And the results can be sent to multiple places. It could be Cosmos DB, it could be Power BI, or you could trigger the downstream workflow by sending data to services like functions, service bus, topics. So that's how this entire pipeline works.